5,000 targets in 10 days. That is the number the United States Central Command released in an official fact sheet around day 10 of Operation Epic Fury, the joint U.S.-Israeli military campaign against Iran that began on February 28, 2026. By day 13, CENTCOM had updated that tally to over 6,000 by day 15. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth stood at a Pentagon podium and cited more than 15,000 targets struck in just over 2 weeks. Those numbers are staggering. They are also official. They come from CENTCOM itself, the military command running the operation, and have been reported by Stars and Stripes, Fox News, Defense Scoop, and other outlets covering the Pentagon directly. But here is what the headlines almost never tell you. CENTCOM did not specify what counts as a target. It did not provide a breakdown. It has not released independent verification. And the casualty figures attached to this operation, depending on which source you consult, range from roughly 1,000 dead to 32,000 dead. That gap between what the Pentagon says and what independent observers can verify is the most important story inside this conflict. And that is what we are going to examine today with full sourcing, no exaggeration, and no omissions. Let's start with what is actually documented, because the official record is remarkable enough on its own. Operation Epic Fury was launched at 1:15 in the morning on February 28, 2026, within the first 72 hours. According to CENTCOM's own fact sheet published around March 3rd and made publicly available through the Department of Defense, U.S. forces had struck over 1,700 targets. The operation was described as targeting Iran's security apparatus, with priority given to locations posing an imminent threat. In the first 24 hours alone, a senior U.S. official confirmed that American forces carried out approximately 900 strikes against Iranian targets. Simultaneously, the Israeli military confirmed that 200 of its aircraft used hundreds of munitions to strike roughly 500 targets on that first day alone. The Wall Street Journal reported that joint attacks had struck around 2,000 targets in the opening phase, according to Anadolu Agency. CENTCOM Commander Admiral Brad Cooper provided video updates on multiple occasions. In a statement broadcast on C-SPAN around March 11th, Cooper confirmed precise target counts and described the operation as delivering devastating combat power against the Iranian regime. He criticized Iran's strategy of placing military assets in densely populated areas and stated that the goal was not merely to address current threats but to eliminate future ones, underscoring that the campaign was designed to be sustained, not episodic. The CENTCOM 10-day summary, which generated the headline figure of approximately 5,000 targets, identified the broad categories of what was struck: command and control centers, integrated air defense systems, ballistic missile sites, naval ships and submarines, anti-ship missile positions, military communications infrastructure, and ballistic missile and drone manufacturing facilities. The fact sheet also noted that more than 60 ships and 30 mine layers had been included in that total. By day 13, CENTCOM updated the figure to over 6,000, with the destruction of additional mine layers following Iran's new Supreme Leader Mojtaba Khomeini's written statement vowing to keep the Strait of Hormuz closed. And by day 15, Secretary Hegseth announced at the Pentagon that the total had exceeded 15,000 targets, that Iranian missile launch volume had been reduced by 90%, and that Iranian one-way attack drone deployment had fallen by 95%. The IDF separately confirmed it had neutralized approximately 300 Iranian mobile missile launchers and deployed around 4,000 munitions since the start of the campaign. So, the numbers in the title of this video are real. They come from the U.S. military itself. But the crucial question, the one that separates informed analysis from pure information warfare, is what exactly those numbers mean. This is the question that every serious analyst of military operations asks when a command releases a large target count. What is in the denominator? CENTCOM's own fact sheet did not specify individual targets, did not provide geolocated strike data, and did not make its methodology for counting available for public review. When Wyong News reported on the 10-day summary, it noted explicitly that CENTCOM did not specify the 5,000 targets it had hit, offering only the broad categorical description of what types of facilities were struck. Historically, in military operations, the word target can mean an entire facility, such as a missile manufacturing plant, or a single component of that facility, such as a specific building within it, or even a specific vehicle or piece of equipment parked outside it. A command post can be one target or 7, depending on how each element is counted. Mobile missile launchers, of which the IDF reported destroying approximately 300, each count as individual targets. 50-plus naval vessels, each with multiple systems aboard, could easily account for several hundred entries in a target tally on their own. None of this means the numbers are false. It means they are not directly comparable to civilian deaths or to the physical footprint of destruction across Iranian territory without a much more granular accounting. The Flashpoint intelligence analysis firm tracking the conflict in real time described the campaign as having started with a focus on leadership and missile infrastructure and then expanded significantly into economic and logistical targets, including communications, drone manufacturing, and military supply chains. That expansion in scope is consistent with a rapidly growing target count over time. Admiral Kupa himself acknowledged on camera that the campaign was designed to be sustained and escalating, adding that CENTCOM was persistently above the enemy and that the volume of bomber sorties and strike pulses was, as of March 13th, at its highest point yet and still climbing. That framing, ramping up and only up, came from Secretary FHZ directly at the Pentagon podium. The target count, in other words, is not a final accounting of a finished campaign. It is a running tally of an operation that, as of the time of this recording, is still ongoing and still intensifying. To understand how 5,000 and then 15,000 targets became achievable in under 2 weeks, you need to understand the extraordinary concentration of American military power that was assembled for this operation. According to the CENTCOM fact sheet and the Anadolu Agency summary of U.S. assets deployed, Operation Epic Fury has involved B-1 bombers, B-2 stealth bombers, B-52 bombers. Lucas one-way attack drones, which a defense update analysis described as making their combat debut in this conflict, EF-15, EF-16, EF-18, F-22, and F-35 fighter jets, attack jets, EA-18G electronic warfare aircraft, MQ-9 Reaper drones, nuclear-powered aircraft carriers, guided missile destroyers, Patriot missile defense systems, and DOD anti-ballistic missile systems. Defense Update described Operation Epic Fury as the most significant U.S. military action in the Middle East since the Iraq War. Unlike that conflict, however, this operation was executed without a formal address to Congress beyond a war powers notification and a briefing to the Gang of 8 congressional leaders. President Trump announced the strikes via a video posted to Truth Social at 2 a.m. Eastern Time on February 28th. B-2 stealth bombers were specifically used to strike Iran's hardened ballistic missile facilities, the deeply buried sites that conventional munitions cannot penetrate. CENTCOM released footage of a B-2 strike on an underground missile launcher, framing the capability as evidence that Iran cannot hide its mobile launch systems from American surveillance and targeting. The naval dimension of the campaign has been equally significant. According to CENTCOM and confirmed by SOF News and Stars and Stripes, Iran's naval fleet has suffered catastrophic losses, more than 50 ships sunk or damaged by the time President Trump publicly cited the figure on March 9th, with 16 mine layers specifically destroyed near the Strait of Hormuz on March 10th. CENTCOM also confirmed the destruction of all 11 Iranian vessels that had been operating in the Gulf of Oman during the opening phase of the conflict. A U.S. Navy submarine sank the Iranian frigate Ayandina with a torpedo on March 4th off the coast of Sri Lanka as the vessel was returning from a multinational naval exercise. Here is where responsible journalism requires a hard pivot, because for every number CENTCOM has released about targets struck, there is a parallel set of numbers that is far more contested, far less reported, and far more important for understanding the full human cost of this operation. The civilian casualty figures for Operation Epic Fury are, as of this recording, among the most heavily disputed factual questions of the conflict. Iran's own health ministry reported, according to the Epic Fury Live conflict tracker, more than 1,045 confirmed deaths from airstrikes and military operations as of mid-March. The Iranian Red Crescent reported more than 6,000 injured, including over 300 children hospitalized. The opposition human rights organization HRANA offered a significantly higher estimate, suggesting the number could reach 7,000 when accounting for indirect casualties and deaths not captured in official Iranian reporting. The Trump administration, for its part, cited a figure of 32,000 dead, a number that would make this one of the deadliest short-duration air campaigns in modern history, and which has not been independently verified by any third party. The gap between 1,000 and 32,000 is not a rounding error. It is a fundamental dispute about the nature of what has been hit. The most specific documented incident of civilian harm is the strike on the Shajara Tayyeba Girls' School in Manab. Iranian officials cited casualty figures ranging from 148 to 153 students and staff killed, with 95 injured. Video of the destroyed school was authenticated by multiple organizations, including the Iranian fact-checking outlet FACTNews. However, subsequent reporting by the Kurdish human rights organization Hengo and geolocated journalism established that the school site was approximately 61 meters from an IRGC naval base that was a confirmed strike target, and that the compound included IRGC-affiliated facilities and had formerly been an IRGC military facility before conversion. CENTCOM confirmed it was investigating the incident internally. The New York Times, reporting on March 11th, indicated that preliminary findings in the ongoing investigation suggested the strike involved outdated targeting data. Unhuman rights experts described the incident as a potential war crime under the Rome Statute. A separate incident involves strikes near Gandhi Hospital in central Tehran, which was damaged as adjacent military and government facilities were targeted. Iranian accounts described an evacuation, including newborns. No independent casualty figures from the hospital incident are available. Setting aside the disputes over casualties and the definitional question of what counts as a target, what does the available evidence suggest about whether the operation has actually achieved its stated military objectives? The stated objectives, according to U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Michael Waltz, as cited in the JINSA analysis, were fourfold: dismantle Iran's missile capabilities, disrupt its ability to arm regional proxies, degrade its naval assets, and ensure Iran cannot reconstitute its nuclear program. Each deserves a brief assessment against available evidence. On missile capabilities, the evidence of degradation is the strongest. According to Defense Scoop, two senior defense officials confirmed on March 13th that Iranian one-way attack drone strikes had fallen by 95% compared to the conflict's opening days. CENTCOM Commander Cooper stated that CENTCOM was now persistently above the enemy, and the significant drop in launch rates was attributed both to the destruction of launchers and to a strategic decision by Iran to ration remaining inventory for a longer war. JINSAS analysis. Citing Grande Continental data noted that the IDF had destroyed approximately 300 Iranian mobile missile launchers, over half of Iran's total launch capacity. On naval assets, the losses to Iran's fleet are among the most unambiguously confirmed outcomes of the operation. CENTCOM confirmed more than 50 ships damaged or sunk, including all 11 vessels in the Gulf of Oman, 16 mine layers near the Strait of Hormuz, and the deep-water sinking of a Yamarong-class corvette at Chabahar. On nuclear reconstitution, the situation is far less clear. According to Epic Fury Live, Iran had enriched uranium to 60% purity before the war and possessed over 400 kilograms of that material, enough for an estimated 4 to 5 nuclear devices if further enriched to weapons grade. Since Israeli strikes on nuclear facilities in June 2025, the IAEA has been unable to conduct in-field verification of current stockpile levels. As of this recording, Iran's nuclear status remains unverified. On proxy capabilities, Iran continued launching drone and missile strikes from proxy forces in Iraq and Yemen throughout the conflict, and Hezbollah intensified rocket fire from Lebanon even as the main campaign was underway. The degradation of proxy networks has not been confirmed by any independent assessment. Let me give you the clearest possible accounting of where each major claim stands as of March 14th, 2026, confirmed by official U.S. military sources and major news organizations. CENTCOM struck approximately 5,000 targets in Iran in the first 10 days of Operation Epic Fury by day 13. The target count had risen to over 6,000 by day 15. Secretary Hegseth cited over 15,000 targets struck. Iran's missile launch rates fell by 90% and its drone deployment by 95% over the same period. More than 50 Iranian naval vessels were sunk or damaged, including all 11 ships in the Gulf of Oman and 16 mine. At least 13 U.S. service members were killed, 7 in direct Iranian attacks, and 6 in a non-hostile KC-135 aircraft crash over western Iraq. Approximately 200 U.S. service members were wounded, with the vast majority having already returned to duty. Disputed or subject to major uncertainty. Civilian casualty figures. Iranian Health Ministry says over 1,000. RANA estimates up to 7,000. The Trump administration cited 32,000. None of these figures has been independently verified. The school strike in Manab, casualty figures range from 148 to 175 dead. The site's proximity to an IRGC base is confirmed. The cause of the strike remains under investigation. UN experts called it a potential war crime. Unknown or unverified whether the destruction of missile launchers and manufacturing facilities permanently eliminates Iran's long-range strike capability or merely delays reconstitution for months or years. Iran's current nuclear material stockpile locations and whether any weapons-grade enrichment occurred before sites were struck. The IAEA cannot verify whether the operation's targets include what a neutral observer would classify as military objectives under international humanitarian law, given the absence of public geolocated strike data. 5,000 targets, 6,000, 15,000. Those numbers are not a rumor. They are the official accounting of the United States military, and they reflect the true scale of the most significant American military operation since the invasion of Iraq in 2003. What remains unverified is what those numbers cost in human lives, not just Iranian military lives, but civilian lives on all sides of this conflict. The range of estimates runs from 1,000 to 32,000. That range is not a statistical variance. It is an information war fought in parallel with the kinetic one. Informed citizens in a democracy deserve to see both sets of numbers, the ones their government releases proudly, and the ones that remain disputed and unverified. That is what this channel is for. Every source cited in this video is linked in the description below. Read them. Cross-reference them, decide for yourself what the scale of this operation really means. I'll see you in the next one.